Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Procurement Games Podcast and Open Conversations, where we pose the question, is the field ever leveled in our favor? Of course, we are talking about procurement and contracting of minority, women, and veteran-owned small businesses deemed to be the underutilized firms in government and private corporation contracting. So, my name is Arlen Pingle, and I am a proud Filipina-American entrepreneur. I lead Mackey Company, a strategic consulting organization focused on procurement supply chain management. We basically help government agencies and private companies design race, ethnic, and gender-conscious contract policies and procedures. More importantly, we help folks like you build capacity, capability, and sustainability. Now, as I mentioned before, this is not a platform to gripe. We are sharing your stories and experiences, but we also want to share how the system works, and more importantly, how to beat it. And if we can find a way to generate solutions that make sense for you, we will do that too. Today, we have another story about the dark side of procurement. We are going to dive into the experiences of a historically marginalized business. With me in our studios today is Mark Vargas, Director of Foresight General Contracting and Consulting. Welcome to the studio, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing well, and thanks for having me.
So I have to ask, of all the careers available out there, what made you go into land surveying?
You know, the survey and the earthwork, I found out were my passion. Being in high school and the career week or whatever, and looking at careers and taking an aptitude test and marking C on every one of the boxes to see what would happen, and it comes back, and you know, I think ambulance driver and land surveyor were one, and there was a picture, and I still remember the picture because it's still idyllic, you know, my idyllic days. There's a river in the background, and there's rocks and trees, and and there's a guy there, and I'm like, that looks exactly like what I want to do. And then I look down, like, oh, that's how much they make? I don't think I want to do that. One of the things about land surveying is you work with a subject matter expert of a different profession on so many levels, whether it's a boundary with a legal person or a contractor or even a homeowner or a business owner, compliance. So, you know, that's how, you know, it really suited me in my general interest aptitude, you know, just kind of progressed, you know, until college. And I was pursuing something completely different. And I took a job in the mortgage and finance industry, and I lasted 3 weeks when I realized that I don't do well indoors.
Mark, it sounds like you weren't cut out for a desk job.
I had started in the land survey industry at the end of the 90s. Right as GPS and electronic total stations were coming in, and because I'd had some experience pushing button on some music equipment, it was very easy for me to understand how the equipment worked, and I advanced based on my understanding of the equipment rather than my understanding of the industry, which, you know, hilarious now, probably not as funny then.
Surveying makes a lot of sense because it's not just you and the land before you, right, Mark? It's actually you being able to interact with other folks in the industry. And that's really what makes surveying unique. Now, let me pivot a little bit from here and ask, what got you into entrepreneurship? What was your inspiration?
It runs in the family. My dad had a business, a real estate and insurance business. I have a brother that owns a computer business. My other sister owns an accounting business, and a brother that's a real estate broker. So I would feel left out if I didn't have my own business. And being the last, the baby, you know, you have to comply. So, you know, that's it. And I have had a lot of construction and experience, and honestly, it kind of happened. One of the neighbors growing up, parents were in the roofing business, and I would hand out flyers for McDonald's, and all of a sudden, after handing out flyers, I noticed I was up on the roof doing stuff, and it just kind of progressed.
You know, it's funny because I'm sure our listeners can absolutely relate to your story, being that we find ourselves doing what we fall into, right? And I always find it fascinating, Mark, to learn how we as individuals become who we are. So now I'm curious to learn about Foresight. What exactly does Foresight do?
Improve processes in already established, workflows. So if you have a survey project or a survey issue, and currently my work consists of mostly like I'm a band-aid. I'm coming in and somebody had a bad permit or a bad survey, and they're kind of at their wits' ends, and they want to talk to somebody that knows something about survey that isn't going to talk down to them. I get that call, and then I end up out there usually working on something on that. And then in the case of more the construction, it really ends up being similar. Somebody will be distressed with whether it was some previous contractor that didn't do some work well for them, or even dealing with their insurance companies or the municipal authorities. I just kind of come in, and honestly, I don't do anything other than provide a buffer and explain to them, like, I'm really sorry, but you didn't do this, and this is the consequences. And I'm finding that there's an industry out there for it. I could do that. And unfortunately, though, that type of Band-Aid and rescue mission, having to just be the person that reaches out, it's exhausting, because I think I become empathetically attached to them. It's like I start petting their dog, and like.
And the thing is, as minority women and veteran-owned small businesses, we know how to do the work, and our deficiencies lie in the administration or the management of the processes, keeping track of the permits and the licensing, let alone try to understand how to get one, right? Because it's not just walking up to the desk and saying, I need a permit. There's more stuff that's required there. And sure, that may be a very vague statement, but there are intricacies tied to that. Most of the subcontracting work that we do, we don't really necessarily pay attention too much to compliance. We're just more focused on quality of work and the execution of work. And as MBEs, WBEs, veteran-owned businesses, we know, or we learn the hard way, about what is required. And so when we look at organizations like Foresight, who can show us how things need to get done and do some risk mitigation, right? Prevent some of the stuff that could potentially put us at risk. It's definitely something that is important and very much needed in our community. I'd really like to encourage everyone to connect with Mark Vargas on our website at procurementgames.org and see how you can improve the current processes you have for administration and compliance, but most importantly, risk mitigation, right? As Mark had alluded to, folks call him if there's a challenge in the processes, and if he's familiar enough with it, he can certainly help. Let's shift gears a little bit, Mark, and talk about the journey of challenges that you've faced as an entrepreneur. How did that look?
This monumental task to overcome was jumping away from my land survey business into the exterior and back into like the guttering and remodeling, like I had the experience. Even though I had done the work years ago, I did it during a boom time when, you pull up the truck outside of a house in a development in Lakeville, and I'd have 5 other jobs.
The system is going to put you in a box. And if the system is going to force you in a box anyway, let's go in there willingly with all the packaging already done, so that when you enter the system, you're ready to go. And you know exactly where the contract is, where the spend dollars are, where all of that. Because if you don't, and you're just going to throw 10 darts onto that board and hope you hit a bullseye, you're not going to win very much that way. And there are plenty of us who will continuously just submit, and then go, well, why am I not winning? And I'm frustrated and I'm bailing out.
I'm always amazed at how there's bleed over from industry to industry entrepreneurial, and honestly, most things, they appear that they be formulaic in some way or another, and I'm always looking for the formula.
And we know that every business has to do their marketing, has to have some strategy, has to understand where the money is from, but most importantly, provide that customer service.
It's, the primary colors of business, of entrepreneur. They're all same, but, those subtle hues that, can be the difference between
success
and failure, right? Like just for instance, if the color of the inside of the Starbucks had not been that one color, would we be all choking down Ventes, Grandes? And can we say Starbucks without you're not going to get sued?
Absolutely
Okay.
not. Absolutely. Well, we hope not, because that's a great plug for them.
The game is much different. You do have to do the advertising. You do have to do all these other things. And sometimes it was hard for me to reconcile and change those things.
Let's talk about the challenges that you faced in some of your decision-making process as an entrepreneur.
The insertion of emotion into decisions, I found hurt me in the wallet and just energy wise. I can't I would say emotional, but I just remember the consequences of some of the decisions that I made just really weighing heavily on me, and like they were decisions that I made personally. But then again, I also remember making personal decisions that might not have been good, but that felt great afterwards, because it was either the termination of a relationship that wasn't working. But coming back to just the system of it all, and the access to capital, I think as an entrepreneur and you're looking for money and you're not getting it, you tried one place or two place, you start to get the sensation like this is awfully invasive to break open a vein for everybody that I get on the phone with, only to hear that I can't help you, but if you call me back in 3 months, or you have 4 signed contracts, that type of thing. So I think even just being aware that yes, you are going to be in a system, yes, you are going to be probed. People are going to ask you for information about yourself and your business that you need to share and you need to be truthful about. And I think in some communities, there's a sense of pride. I mean, I'm sure all communities. I've seen it doesn't matter what ethnicity is. I've seen people in my own family. I've done it myself, where I've been too proud to admit that I was wrong, and suffered from not. Now I just admit that I'm wrong all the time, but that's not working as well as I thought it would as initially. So.
Well, and the thing is, it's again, we go cultural, we'll go gender, we'll go ethnicity. It's across all of them. Why do we want to share that information about us? And for minorities, women, disadvantaged small firms, why do we want to disclose all of that stuff that they're going to think and judge as negative for us, right? So why do we want to tell you our dirty laundry? Because you might use it against us. So we're not just, but again, the system isn't designed to adjust to that. Now, not saying that it's 100%, because there are organizations out there that are open, right? They're open to working with our community, working with women, veterans, and small businesses. But the general consensus, maybe 70 to 80%, right? I'd say 70 to 80% are still operating under the same rules and regulations that still make us feel that they're really more against us than they are for us.
Oh, that is something that is pervasive.
So in your line of work, obviously you're coming in and making solutions. You're also an advisor to these small businesses, right? So how do you connect with these small minority, women-owned, veteran-owned businesses? And how have you included them in your own practice? Right? Because we always look at the landscape as a whole to want to include us, but we must also include our own. So what has that? What's your outreach like, and how have you been inclusive?
So I am a notorious BSer, and I'm just brutally honest, and I think brutal honesty coming from somebody that is trying to get you to smile even though you're facing something difficult. I think that's it. And it must come from childhood, the last of 6 kids, like, being the entertainment, it's fun. That's exactly what it is. Well, I'm going to have to give you a copay for this visit here today. So gravitate towards minority families and businesses.
Mark, you and I share that passion of empathy and heart. And that is, it's easy for us to try to fix everything. The financial model doesn't give us opportunity to fix everything. How has that been harmful? Because we as minorities are passionate, right? We are a social entity within ourselves, because we are about the greater good and what's right and what's wrong, and if we just worked for a common solution, everybody will win. But that's not the financial model.
It isn't the financial model, but again, we call ourselves entrepreneurs, and what entrepreneurs are known for is coming up for better ideas. And the Stoics talk about those things didn't happen to you, they happened for you. And that formula for the funding, for the money, it's out there. The dollars are out there. We just have not figured out the methodology to capture them.
I tell you what, if we had that magic formula or that magic bean that just made us profitable all at once, but barring those two elements, who has been in your ecosystem that has supported you? And
Foster Hackett and my dad. My dad's saying, you're doing it backwards, and Foster's like, yeah, you're going to lose money.
I love that you have two people, the voices in your head, that's always giving you that guidance along the way. So let me shift again here real quick and ask about your network, because I want to know, how exactly did you build that? Because that's really important in our realm, right? As a small business owner.
For me, being born and raised here and developing the relationships and just trying to get out and meet as many people as I can, I'm always amazed that, hey, I just had a meeting with the mayor of Rochester. It's like, why me? And what I would encourage is get out there and network, whether it's, a local community agency. Mackey Company is, in my opinion, if you're a DBE and you're looking to, navigate procurement or government contracts, it's the place to go. The DBE program in the state of Minnesota, predates your presence. There was a feeling or a sensation, I think there was a revitalization, and I've seen it, and I, talking to other people that I've known for years, and if your name comes up, it's like, oh yeah, she's, it's those types of things that the small business needs to get out, and they need to get outside their comfort zone. I know you turn on the TV, the mainstream cable, and the general populace, which is say, the 50 to 60% of the white community in the Twin City or Caucasian community. Hey, get outside your comfort bubble.
So with regards to you as a minority-owned small business, how has procurement impacted you? What has worked and what hasn't worked?
Financing and initially awareness. I entered the business world with Foresight thinking, these people at MnDOT know me. I'm going to give them a competitive bid. It's a lock. Once I get the contract, I got the money, and I'm rich, right? And it just the pause in between you getting the money and just navigating the procurement. Somebody asks you for a qualification statement, you're like, I don't know what that is, But even just the lexicon of business, coming from a person that spent the majority of the time in the field, somebody like, oh, didn't you read the RFP? And I'm like, well, yeah, what's an RFP? I read it, So it was, a steeper learning curve than I had anticipated. But beyond the challenges of just understanding the procurement component of it.
Mark, there's some truth there, because there's a lot of minority women and veteran-owned small businesses who don't really understand some of these documents that they need to put together in order to qualify or at least illustrate what their capabilities and their capacities are. But it's not just that, because there's a lot of folks who don't really understand what a disadvantaged business enterprise really is.
Some of the notions and the concepts of what DBE is this foreign-born person, and I'm not. So I think sometimes they're like, well, why are you a DBE? What'd you do? And also, too, how are you disadvantaged? You grew up playing hockey and you lived in the suburbs.
I agree with you there. There are a lot of us who don't really understand what a disadvantaged business enterprise or DBE is about. And so, there's a lot of assumptions with regards to who's qualified or who's not.
We can't continue in our society to hold these stereotypes about what a certain person who does a certain trade looks like.
This is probably a good segue to ask, what are some of the issues and roadblocks that you've faced in the industry? And, what has been effective?
The project management training that they take for granted and they use as a guide for the majority of their decisions doesn't exist in the minds of the entrepreneurs that are not in the know or raised on this. When we met yesterday, I think, Tracy Jackson from Mindad about, how the DBE programs over these years have changed. And I think it was, an idea with the greatest intentions, but the rollout and the implementation has been this 30-year effort. I think it's had its ups and it's had its downs, and definitely when Mackey Company came to town, I think I personally felt like, I don't know if this is really doing much for me, and I think I attended one of your classes and I learned a whole bunch and I was invigorated. It was like a revival, a tent revival that you're having here. Because you work with, DBE, minority and smaller businesses, that support system outside of their family and their core unit, it really is, it's needed. It's that emotional cheer. Maybe it's, one of the hidden facets, in being successful is having outside interests, being interested in your positive outcome or welfare. So
for our businesses, Mark, what would you advise them to do moving forward?
Yeah.
Again, I'm a person that has just received so much good information, good advice, well-meaning help. Unsolicited help. I don't know, I must look like I need help. But I think sometimes when people are getting help, we have a tendency like, I think I kind of, or listen over that. And I think I may have done some of that. I know that I did that more in the past. It's something of a maturity process. I think a lot of understanding, how to be a better listener. And then that's really, I would say that if I had to start over the better listener part, it seems to me in my, perusing of the business self-help universe in YouTube, that, that those are the things that you hear over and over. And those people that are saying those things that are truly successful, they know. And I think it's these same struggles that everybody goes through, but this DBE struggle is definitely unique because culturally, sometimes people that aren't from the United States view regulation and compliance as impediments to the success of their business, or they believe like, who's the guy that I get to look the other way? I've seen this.
Absolutely.
And the message that, you're better off just learning the rules as best as you can, the way that they are, because the better understanding you have of the rules, you'll know when you're breaking them.
Well, and I think for you, my guidance would really be the strategy. I think you can support the process for your decision making, support the process for the target of your services, how you're going to generate that capital. I think if we focus that, I think that's where you're going to get your wins and get you to transition back into the swing of things, right? And really get you positioned for that box that you're about to enter in the foray. There's no doubt you have the knowledge, there's no doubt you have the network, and there's no doubt you don't understand the process. You do. So now it's a matter of going, taking the time to really look at the strategy and identify, the steps that, you should take for that decision-making process, the analyzing of opportunities process, and then the access to capital.
And with that, I'd like to say thanks to Mark Vargas of Foresight General Contracting and Consulting for sharing his story. To our listeners, I'm sure Mark's story resonated with you. We hope you are encouraged to share your story with us to bring to light some of the barriers we face as minority, women, and veteran-owned small businesses. Next week on Procurement Games Podcast and Open Conversations, we will host Sabrina Jones, CEO, founder, and master mixer at SJC Body Love. Sabrina will be joining us to share her story of success and challenges in bringing her products to market. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, don't just go after the low-hanging fruit. Look up and see the rest of the tree, filled with fruits getting ready to ripen. Strive for that, my friends, and strategize for the win. Until next time.